Shallow, Wam, all praises to the Most High, Anoka said. Praise be to the earthly mother, the Pachamama, and all of her earthly angels, the Erkadeshoi. Praise be to the Holy Spirit, the Kahe, in the name of his only begotten Son, Motsah the Lamb, unification to the nation. So, yeah, I've been really doing my thing today with these videos, but I wanted to really get out this information because this is just very important. Showing this picture again, and of course this is a bad it is a bad PDF, I'm very sorry, but this says ancient land of the dove, and this is in Australia. Why is that? Because this is the true location of ancient Egypt, which was attached to Antarctica, as we've been speaking about. So we're going to speak a little bit about I guess the Egyptians, or the connection with Australia and ancient Egypt. This is something I wanted to speak on for a while, but I kind of want to speak on other things first. The hieroglyphs tell the tale of early Egyptian explorers injured and stranded in ancient Australia. The discovery centers around the most unusual set of rock carvings found in the National Park Forest of the Hunter Valley, 100 kilometers north of Sydney. The enigmatic carvings have been part of the local folklore of the area for nearly a century, with reports of people who sighted them as far back as the early 1900s. The site was secretly visited by families in the know in the 1950s and fell back into local mythology for a couple of decades until it was accidentally rediscovered by a man looking for his lost dog. The carvings are in a rock cleft, a large block of split sandstone on a cliff face that has created a small chasm or chamber of two flat stone walls facing each other that widens out from 2 to 4 meters and is covered in by a huge flat rock as a roof at the narrow end. The cleft is most cave-like and only accessible by a small rock chute from above or below, well disguised from the average bushwalker. Oh, that was mad racist, bro. What the hell? Well disguised from the average bushwalker. But the Europeans can find it who are walking their dogs. What's I don't understand that. When you first come up the rock chute and climb into the stone hallway, you are immediately confronted by a number of worn carvings that are obviously ancient Egyptian symbols. These are certainly not your average Aboriginal animal carvings, but something clearly alien in the Australian bush setting. There are at least 250 hieroglyphs. At the end of the chamber, protected by the remaining section of stone roof, is a remarkable life-size carving of the ancient Egyptian god Anubis, the judge of the dead. The hieroglyphs were extremely ancient, in the archaic style of the early dynasties. This archaic style is very little known and untranslatable by most Egyptologists who are all trained to read Middle Egyptian upward. Wow. So they're saying this is incredibly old, right? Where was Egypt? The classic Egyptian dictionaries only handle Middle Egyptian, and there are few people in the world who can read and translate the early formative style. Because the old style contains early forms of glyphs that correlate with archaic Phoenician and Sumerian sources, one can see how the university researchers who saw them could easily have thought them to be bizarre and ill-conceived forgeries. Everything's a forgery to these people. Why? Because they think Egypt's over there. So anything that seems older and hard to understand, well, that's a forgery. They find these Hebrew stones all over Puerto Rico. Oh, those are forgeries. That's some native weird Hebrew. No, it's actually the original Hebrew. Not that Phoenician nonsense mixed with Yiddish. Skipping down, because he's just going to translate the text, and you could check that out on your own. I'll leave the link in the description. But skipping down, visual observation of the site makes it obvious that the very worn carvings exposed to the coastal weather would have to be several centuries to 1,000 years old at least. When first found, the site was completely overgrown with thick vegetation and filled in with smashed rock and a much higher solid line. A number of excavation attempts by interested parties have not turned up any artifacts or bodies, but sophisticated and expensive laser scanning techniques have not been applied. There is significant evidence that the ancients were well aware of the Great Southland. They were both Sumerian and Mayan traditions of a lost motherland in the Pacific. Australia appears under the name of Antiochus. That sounds like and I forgot. My Maori brothers will know because there's this one brother who be correcting me on everything that has to do with the Pacific. So if you're watching, please help me out. On the famous spherical world map of Cratis of Malos, even appearing on the Greek map of Erastosthenes. I don't know what the hell that is. It is fairly certain that the maritime civilizations of antiquity were quite capable of extensive ocean voyages. They just don't know that this was actually part of ancient Egypt. Particularly the early Egyptians, as evidenced by Gaza's remarkable Tomb of the Boat. In the 1950s, a streamlined 4,500-year-old 100-foot ocean-going vessel was I'll just wait for this. Was excavated from right next to the Great Pyramid. In 1991, an entire fleet of even older boats was found buried in the desert at Barbados in Upper Egypt. According to Cairo Times in 1982, archaeologists working at Fayum near Siwa Oasis uncovered fossils of kangaroos and other Australian marsupials. And there's also the strange set of golden boomerangs discovered by Professor Carter in the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922. So you can see that they this is kind of crazy. Now look at this comment. They traveled westward for 2 seasons. Where were they coming from? India, China, the Americas? And people know that these are the oldest civilizations. Like, when they're telling the truth, they know, man. They know. Everyone else just don't know. But that's why I like people who aren't necessarily religious who do research, because they're pretty impartial. They're not running with some sort of agenda. An ancient aquatic system older than the pyramids has been revealed by the Australian bushfires. Extensive water channels built by indigenous Australians thousands of years ago to trap and harvest eels for food have been revealed after wildfires burned away thick vegetation in the state of Victoria. How do you know they built it? I'm not saying that they didn't. I'm just saying, how do you know? Let's skip down. Constructed by these people more than 6,600 years ago, it is older than Egypt's pyramids. There's a lot of things older than Egypt's pyramids. Do I have that open? Do I have the medieval empire of the Israelites open? Let's open it. Let's open it. And let's see, when were these pyramids actually made in so-called Egypt? so-called Egypt. Now look at this. We have collected the conclusions of dozens of scientists from various countries that the most ancient monuments of mankind, the pyramids of Egypt, were erected in the period between the 11th and 18th centuries of our own era. Meaning they just came around like what? Maybe 800 years ago, 900 years ago, if that. And they finished about 200 years ago. But yeah, this is a very, very, very old land. In fact, this is one of the oldest lands on Earth. And with actually Antarctica gone, it is the oldest land on Earth when you think about it. So we're going to go into the Gympie, I hope I'm saying that right, pyramid, located in the outskirts of Gympie in Queensland, Australia, is a terraced structure that some claim was built by ancient Egyptians long before Europeans came to Australia, while others say it was built by an Italian vineyard owner in the 1950s. This is the same thing, man. It's like the same hand that they have in the middle of the Atacama Desert. Like I don't know. I just don't know. It doesn't look good enough that natives built it, but they're always attributing some of these things to so-called Europeans, so-called foreigners, Gentiles. They're always attributing these things to them. It doesn't make any sense, but let's continue. Constructed from granite blocks, it stands about 100 feet tall. A small idol was allegedly dug up around the same area that some say is a representation of an Egyptian god Thoth in ape form, clutching the taw, and in Hebrew that's tav, you're right, or the cross of life. This statue is now on display in the Gympie Museum. According to Rex Gilroy, the man who discovered the pyramid who runs the museum, it was created by Egyptians who had mining operations in Australia centuries ago, with bases of operation reaching as far as the Blue Mountains in New South Wales. Other objects have been purportedly found in the area, including scarabs, coins, and even an Easter Island type head. Wow, you see that? Oh my goodness. By the way, Easter Island, that's one of the islands that have the same stones that they have in Stonehenge and Machu Picchu, and someplace in Mecca, I believe, and in Easter Island. So it was all built by one group of people. You know, the town. Let me see. Do I skip down? No. This is important. The town of Gympie at Tin Can Bay, north of Brisbane, Queensland, is the unlikely site of a pyramid complex. The first Europeans to come into the area in the 1830s learned of them from the now extinct Kabai-speaking people of Gympie, known then as the Hamuri. According to the Aboriginals, listen to this: brown-skinned, blue-eyed, blonde-haired beings wearing dolphin pendants came from Orion long ago and built pyramids and temple sites, but water covered them all. So the Aboriginals, they know that one, how the Canaanites looked, how they had blonde hair and blue eyes, and of course some of them were brown skinned. We can even see that in accounts. Some of them were copper colored, right? that the rulers of Egypt were copper colored. But some of them probably were white. I don't know. It's hard to say. It is what it is, though. Moving on. The the ruins were taboo to them. Settlers took the stones of the pyramids and other buildings and used them as foundation stones for the main street of Gimpai and the construction of buildings, including the local church, which still stands. There were stone statues like the Easter Island statues and also animal statues. These could have been destroyed or are hidden, but photos and sketches of them remain from the first white man to come into the area. Even the tunnels under Gimpai were dynamited. You see how these people move? They're hiding something. They're hiding something. All but one of the pyramids was bulldozed into the ocean by the army in the 1950s, and the lone survivor remains on a private island with a strict no trespassing policy. What are they hiding, bro? See, they were really hiding something in this place. They're bulldozing places. Like, what the heck? They're bulldozing pyramids? Why would they do something like that? You'd think that people would be in an uproar. You found older things in this land and you're trying to hide stuff? Like, what's that about? What are you trying to hide? The pyramid is 100 feet high and designed with a series of terraces? I don't know, bro. Up to 4 feet tall and 8 feet wide. The army sealed the entrance in the 1930s after investigating reports of cattle wandering into the pyramid when an opening was still accessible and never coming out, and no reports or findings were available. In recent years, according to the locals, the owner has attempted to destroy the pyramid in the hopes of discouraging visitors to the site. Artifacts have survived, including the Gimpai ape, which was dug up in the 1960s, and is thought to be a statue of the Egyptian god Thoth, who was often portrayed as an ape, and another resembling Ganesha from Indian mythology. So there's a connection with India, with Australia. What's that about? Two very, very, if not the oldest civilizations. Egyptian god Thoth is clutching the Taw, or the cross of life. Didn't we read this? Yeah, I think we did. Let's move on. And this is how the statue looked. Well, this is one of the statues. The Indian goddess Lakshmi. So it definitely seems like ancient Egypt. There was some sort of connection with India, with maybe Ethiopia, and they just spread out. But there was a centralized place. Where was it? Australia is very important. Why was Australia spared, but the rest of it was frozen? I find that a little bit bizarre, don't you? What do you think? Is that not bizarre? And this article, I'm not gonna read it but they're pretty much saying that the Australians, they have an oral history of certain lands sinking, and they can point out, oh, that land was there, and then when they go check it out, they're like, oh wow, there really was a land here. They keep a very, very detailed oral history. Very, very detailed. These are a very ancient people. Very ancient people, man. Moving along. And in this article, they were saying how the seas were a lot lower. I was thinking shorter. I was like, nah. Yeah, they were a lot lower before. They're pretty high right now, and because of that, there's a lot of islands that have sunken due to that. Now I wanted to show you this this real quick. Because who could have built this? This is a rectangular object. Almost seems like a mound. And of course they have the ancient aliens and stuff like that, but they say the same thing about the Egyptians, don't they? I don't know what this means. I'm just pointing it out. One more time. What was Australia attached to at one point? Alright. Now we're going to come back to that, but I want to play this real quick. Actually, I think I played this in a video before. I'm pretty sure I played this in a video before, but I didn't understand certain things then, but I do now. So we're going to play it again for those who haven't seen it.
EVE Online is a vast...
as the Gosford Glyphs. The site consists of two massive 8-foot-high walls engraved with over 300 ancient carvings. Carvings that experts say do not resemble indigenous artwork, but Egyptian hieroglyphs.
You can see which ones are older just by looking at that. Those look exactly the same, but one looks a lot older than the other. What? It's not just the people who are old, it's this land that's very old. This land is incredibly old.
After deciphering the texts, 21st century Egyptologist Raymond Johnson believed them to reveal the burial site of Lord Nefertiru, a member of the Egyptian royal family, who died while visiting the area with his brother sometime between 2637 to 2614 BC.
Absolutely beautiful out here.
I know.
While visiting the area in 2016, Giorgio Tsoukalos met with local ancient astronaut theorist Evan Strong to get a first-hand look at these enigmatic carvings.
Wow! That's incredible. I had no idea. I mean, this looks totally different than on pictures. So what do these hieroglyphs say?
Well, at least one panel talks about two brothers, two princes, coming here from Egypt. They were shipwrecked. One of them ended up getting bitten by a snake. He then died. The theory is then he was interred here, and that's why you've got hieroglyphs here. Because
So this expert is letting us know what this means. Listen, man. They don't know what this means, bro. We just have to sound confident and say, well, yeah, this is what this means. Can anyone fact check you? If you're one of the only people in the world who so-called knows how to read this, even though no one studied how to do this because no one has ever seen this stuff before. So how do you know how to read it? Retarded.
died here. But there's these other walls with a mixture of symbols. This one over here, it's more of a philosophical astrophysics style thing with symbols meaning all sorts of esoteric stuff. So
Now, have these symbols at all been interpreted by Egyptologists?
there've been a few actually, a few different people have done that.
What was their reaction?
Well, Raymond Johnson was one of the first people to come here and translate. He actually sent some of his translations off to the Cairo Library, and Dr. Abu Ghazi ended up saying, yep, you're on the right track. Something called Proto-Egyptian.
And how old do you reckon these are?
We're thinking, because of their prevalence at least in one panel of Proto-Egyptian, that it's about 4,600 years old.
Wow. Are there any hieroglyphs that stand out to you?
Yeah, definitely. Follow me down here and I'll show you this other one.
I feel like I'm having deja vu. So I started to get annoyed.
So this one here,
around this time too.
we call the UFO glyph, and people have called that since they've been coming here because it kind of looks like a UFO.
Yeah, it definitely has
Now
to.
look at that. So it looks like a UFO, right? Isn't that what people spot in Antarctica? UFOs? Can I rest my case now? No, we still gotta flow, bro. We still gotta flow. So, I have this theory that the people in Africa, quote unquote, you know, the Shemites that got there after, they actually either came from Asia or they came from Australia or Antarctica, whatever you want to call it. The reason why I'm saying that is because of the different names that these people have. Because you have you know, these people called Soli. That sounds like Somali. I mentioned that before. Who married Queen Limbu, right? That sounds like Limba, doesn't it? So there's definitely a connection with Australia and Africa, because this is all playing out in Africa. This article is about Prester John, king of the three Indias. But one of the Indias was supposed to face Ethiopia, the other was supposed to face Persia. We don't even know where Persia is, but I digress. And the other is at the ends of the earth, which we know as the Americas, which I think is Peru, but you can have a different opinion. Let me see. And look, this right here. This person became the second Prester John Emperor of the three Indias. He married his cousin, Princess Radha, the daughter of Solomon I, or Soli, the Jewish king of Telmas, and Queen Limbu. And they say it means Lebana, of the Rubani, Gadi, and Mani of Java Le Grande, or Australia. Now remember this, Java Le Grande. We're going to see that again. Let's keep flowing. So, this person is like, Marco Polo was right. Recent reports state that Antarctica had a warm climate like California and Florida in the past. Others report that it was once a tropical paradise. Now, he said, what if the cataclysmic events of 1530 caused some lands in the Indian Ocean to sink, while also moved others further apart? So he's saying that pretty much Antarctica was not frozen in the 1530s. Even this person is saying this. Let me see. We have two different places. Let me see. It is interesting that Marco Polo described two large islands called Condor and Sonder, which were 700 miles southwest of the port city of Java Le Grande, or Australia, probably the original coast of Western Australia near today's King Sound. Recently, scientists have discovered these two sunken lands about 1,600 kilometers west of Perth. They are found on the plateaus of the Batavia Knoll and the Golden Drac Ridge. They are 150 kilometers apart. The evolutionary scientists claim that they were above ground millions of years ago, whereas Marco Polo and others reveal they were still above the sea in the 14th century AD. We don't even know when Marco Polo was actually alive. So, I mean, whatever. It doesn't really matter what they say. And they're saying that one of them obviously sunk last. Let's see. It would seem that some of this island remained after 1530 and is still recorded on maps in the 1550s and 1560s as the Isla or Isle or Isle, excuse me, I'm tripping, de Giants, Islands of Giants, pretty much, Island of Giants. Let's keep flowing, bro. So remember, Java Le Grande is Australia, right? Hold up, let's skip ahead because I want to show you. Where is Java Le Grande? Right here. Where Australia would be. And it is connected to Antarctica or Terra Australis. Let me see if I can find another map. This one is flipped upside down, but you can see Java La Grande connected to this big piece of land, which is also connected to South America. Let's see what we have now. Yeah, I wanted to show this. So they have two different maps of this. This is very interesting. They have an inland sea, the Yam Rahadod. Right, that's what they call this, and they call these the lands of Gad. The land of Benjamin was here, but it sunk. They have Shambhala, that's connected to Australia. They have half of the tribe of Manasseh over here. So I still don't even know, where's the Jordan River? If this person has all these tribes here, where's the Jordan River? Of course, he believes that Israel's in the Middle East, so he thinks it's on this side. But maybe the Jordan River is somewhere on this side. I don't know, man. It's hard to put my finger on where the Jordan River could actually be. Skipping down. Let's go down. Now you have sunken lands in the Indian Ocean. Skipping down, I want to go to the map. I went to this map before. Now, I find it very interesting. This is why I wanted to go to this map. First, it calls this Java the Great, of course, and Java the Lest, or Java Le Grande. But look, what does it say? Thebe River, right? This is the Thebe River. What is the Thebe River? Well, what is Thebes? Thebes, known to the ancient Egyptians as Waset, was an ancient Egyptian city located along the Nile. So, whatever they think is the Nile River or some sort of river that was in Egypt, this map just called it the Thebe River, right? And there was an inland sea. Is that the Sea of Egypt? I don't know, man. This stuff, it gets hard to say, right? Now, there was a reason why I went over that. We're going to do a lot of jumping around. I'm sorry if I'm confusing anyone. I deeply apologize. But I'm going to play another video here.
Over 1,000 years after the pyramids were built, the greatest chapter in Egypt's history was only just beginning. The new kingdom brought with it an explosion of creativity, wealth, and power. It would be the envy of civilizations to come. The Greeks, the Romans, Napoleon, all would look for inspiration to the men and women who built the first empire in recorded history. Yet less than a century before, things had been very different. In 1560 BC, Egypt was in crisis. For the first time, the kingdom of the ancient pyramid builders was occupied and divided. Egypt was on the verge of extinction. In the north, foreign rulers had invaded and declared themselves pharaohs. Their people, the Hyksos, now occupied the rich Nile Delta. To the south, the warlike Nubians threatened the last remnants of Egypt.
Interesting. So you have the Hyksos versus the Nubians, right? Let's see. They're going to show who the Hyksos were, but the Hyksos were a Semitic people who gained a foothold in Egypt. Right? So I wanted to show you here, but actually no. Although the later Egyptian scribes of the New Kingdom would demonize the Hyksos as invaders who conquered the land, destroyed temples, and slaughtered without mercy, there is no evidence for any of these claims. Even today, the Hyksos are referred to as invaders, and their advent in Egypt as the Hyksos invasion, but actually they assimilated neatly into Egyptian culture, adopting Egyptian fashion and religious beliefs, with some modifications as their own. Contrary to many claims throughout the years, there is no reason to identify the Hyksos with the Hurrians nor with the Hebrew slaves from the biblical book of Exodus. Okay, sure. But Josephus said that the Hyksos, take it with a grain of salt. We don't even know if that's his real name. But even so, he said that they were the same people, that they were the people. The Hyksos was believed to be an Asiatic people that conquered the east coast of the Nile Delta and founded the second intermediate period of ancient Egypt and were evicted during the end of the 17th century, 17th dynasty, So they were an Asiatic people. You don't know where they really came from. Right? To me, that sounds of when a bunch of so-called melanated Asians come and conquer you. It kind of sounds like the Israelites. But there was a person who made a comment here that I was just like, whoa, wait a minute. We Polynesians are the Hyksos. Get it right. Why would he say this? But when you really think about it, it really makes sense if we know, because we know where the real Egypt is. And we know who the real Polynesians are, not the white people who came and mixed in with them. But who were the Polynesians before? We know that we are the Hyksos and we were the Israelites, the ones that came from South America. Where they say the Polynesians came from? South America. And they conquered many lands around the Pacifics. They were a great seafaring people. So are the Polynesians actually Solomon's navy? They assimilated into them, right? 1 Kings chapter 3, and Solomon made affinity with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David until he had made an end of building his own house, and the house of the Lord, and the wall of Jerusalem round about. And you know what's funny? There's a story of Tupac Inca going to the Pacific to get a woman, and said that they brought black people from Australia back as slaves. These stories just sound so much like King Solomon. My computer froze. Okay, hopefully we're back. So who were the Hyksos? And I'm not gonna read all this. They successfully took over Egypt, and a succession of 6 kings took power, known as the Great Hyksos Pharaohs. Josephus Flavius, Jewish historian of the 1st century CE and author of The Antiquity of the Jews, identified the Hyksos with the Hebrews. Most historians today disagree, but there are some striking similarities. First, the Hyksos people were from an alien culture and did not follow the Egyptian religion. The Hyksos pharaohs never claimed to be gods, nor did they build for themselves any tremendous monuments that later pharaohs would. They also moved the capital of Egypt northward. Wow. They moved it where? Northward. They were where? North. They were in the north, right? Where was Solomon's kingdom? All making sense now? So they moved their kingdom pretty much to Australia, pretty much. That's what it was really, or Kumari Kingdom or whatever sunken land was there. They moved their kingdom up north. That's crazy, bro. Josephus points out the proximity of their capital to the land of Goshen, which is in the area the Jews settled. Wow. Wow. Where was the land of the dove, bro? Where was the land of the dove? You mean that the same land you know what I'm trying to say. The same land they left is the same land they built their empire as these Hebrew pharaohs. What? It's crazy, man. We really were a mighty people, man. We took over all the Egyptians' lands. We took over a bunch of lands. Like, we were just all over the world. We didn't do our job, and we started following the Canaanites and started eating people and started abusing people. Wow. Bunch of fools.
The invasion of the Hyksos to Egypt was really a shock, a surprise, because this is the first time that Egypt was completely invaded. This is the first time that a strange people entered in Egypt and lived for 150 years.
The Egyptian royal line and its city, Thebes, had fallen on hard times. But the ruler of Thebes and his two sons, the young princes Kamose and his brother Ahmose, were determined to revive Egypt's former glory. But their hatred of the Hyksos was also personal. Their father tried to rebel against the invaders in the north. He paid a terrible price. 3,500 years later, his corpse still bears witness to his brutal slaughter at the hands of the enemy. To Egyptians, these foreigners were nothing more than barbarians.
They are described as that
Look
vile
at how
foe.
they drew us. Of course, they tried to make us mad ugly, but we all have similar features. We have these similar features about us. Some of us, they make us look mad black, but we all have these very interesting features. They make our jaws look huge and nasty.
People who are
Honestly, we're
beyond
more
the
handsome
pale.
than they are, but
Foreigners are
it is what it is.
dirt under the feet of the Pharaoh.
Images of foreigners were carved on footstools.
This is how they drew us, bro. They put these on footstools. They have a supreme hate for us, bro. And some of y'all want to be Hamites. It's crazy. Like, what the heck? What is that about? Oh man. That's all I wanted to show you. Other than that, I could show you who they think Joseph was, because this was hilarious.
Have been the statue of an Egyptian official.
When we get it back to the museum and restore it, it looks like this. And you can see that the head's been completely smashed, the lower part of the head, and the eyes have been gouged out. The most important thing is this. It's an amazing haircut. We don't see anything like that in Egypt before this time. And the hair colour is bright red. This guy had flame red hair.
The details were typical of Semitic people.
Another little detail is the skin colour. Here we can see the forehead, and this here is yellow skin. And that's typical of what the Egyptians did to represent foreigners from the north, people with pale skin.
It wasn't just on the hair and face that paint was found. Flakes of red and black paint were found on the outline of a garment, and with it a distinctive pattern. Could this be a multicolored coat? Could this be Joseph? The absence of a nameplate
Joseph
means there's no
the
way
Greek. Look how they use. This looks like a Greek, bro. This is not Joseph. Are you crazy? This is a Greek.
knowing, but for David Roll, there are no other contenders.
We have no other example of something quite as extraordinary as this. We have no...
I just wanted to show you that. I'm not going to get into the babbling nonsense. What else did I want to show? I want to go back to something. I had other things. Yeah, I had other articles. Did the ancient Egyptians reach Australia? Is this the same one? Yeah, this is the same stuff. Okay, next article. Let's see if there's anything here. Yeah, the hieroglyphs. I could put these in the description if you want to check them out. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Didn't we talk about sun worshippers? Alright. He discovered the Aboriginals worshiped the sun. And look at this. They also had an Earth Mother and rainbow serpent cult. Later, he discovered many of these words spoken were of Egyptian origin. So, were all of these people from Mizraim? Obviously not. Some of these are from Israel. I'm glad I ran into this because I didn't even see this. That's very interesting. Earth Mother, Pachamama, Rainbow Serpent, Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, Hamashiac, come on now, Fiery Flying Serpent, the Rainbow Serpent, come on now, come on. Yo, I know Dean probably like going crazy right now with this drop, man. This is one hell of a drop, man. I don't even think I realize it. Oh, this seems like a pretty informational article. Wait a minute. I just saw America. So now my ears perked up. That engraving and I'm not going to read this account, provide answers to a series of unresolved questions that mainstream academia are unable to appreciate. The presence of Australian Aboriginal people in America was the focus of issue 35 of the highly respected science magazine Cosmos. The front cover carried the following caption: Did Aboriginals discover America? Startling new finds suggest that Australia's first people made it all the way to South America more than 11,000 years ago. Or were we the people who went to Australia, aka were we the Hyksos? It's all making sense, bro. Because everything seems to connect to South America, because, you know, these Australian Aborigines, we share DNA with them, right? But how? Why? Now look at this. This is even crazier. Of course, America was merely one port of call when the first Australians set sail. Dr. and I'm not going to say this name, and researchers from the Indian government-backed Anthropological Survey of India project found unique genetic mutations were shared between modern-day Indians and Aborigines. They identified 7 people from Central Dravidian and Austroasiatic tribes who shared genetic traits only found in Aborigines. These facts, along with newly discovered Australian genetic links to a hominin in Siberia referred to as Denisovan, necessitate the same means of transport, a boat. So, you could see that all of these people are really kind of all related, who have to do with ancient Egypt, the real ancient Egypt. Oh, this is too much drop, bro. This is way too much drop. This is way too much drop, bro. There's way too much drop. I don't even know. Let me get into one last thing, because I'm trying to figure this out, because I don't really understand it. Now, wait. First, before I go here, do you see any Israel here? I see Arab. I see something in Greek. For here, do you see Egypt here? There's no Egypt here. There's no, I don't know what this is, but there's no Judea, there's no Israel, there's no Jerusalem, there's no Hierosolima, there's nothing. Right? But when you get to here, over here to Peru, you have this really weird word. Casal Malia. Like, let me write it down. CASALMALEA. What is that? And don't Google this, bro, because it'll take you to something really. Yeah, you can see right here where it'll take you to. So it's not gonna give you anything, but I don't know what this means. Now it kind of looks like Hierosolima, kinda, right? But here's the thing. Jerusalem in the New Testament, it is spelled in so many different ways in Greek, because that looks kind of like a mix of Greek and Latin. There's Solima, right? There's one way. Soliman. Solimos. Solima. And there's other ways. Like this is pretty much the list of all the different ways. And Herio Solimaitia, Maitai, or something like that. Like there's just so many different names of Jerusalem. Look at all these different names. They don't even know really what the city was originally called. Believe it or not, they don't really know. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? That they literally don't know what the city was called. A city called Salem in the execration text of the Middle Kingdom of Egypt is sometimes identified as Jerusalem, although this has been challenged. Jerusalem is called either Salem in the Amarnan letters of this person, but this name keeps changing, and I think this name keeps changing because there are multiple places that they're trying to replicate, right? So we really don't know what the original city was called. Of course, it's supposed to be called like Salem. It's not supposed to be called Jeru or Heru. That's an Egyptian god, but we adopted that custom and we just began to call it that. But I just want to show you that there's a bunch of different names, so this name can be just another drop in the bucket for all I know. I just found that very interesting. Unless someone knows what this means, let me know. But this is not something I've ever seen before. You have Cusco right underneath. You have Amazonikis or whatever. I don't even know what this language this is, man. But I will leave this link in the description. One last thing. Let me hit you with this. Ariel. Do you guys know what this means? This means a lioness of the Most High. Symbolic for the name Ur or Jerusalem, pretty much. The same as Ariel. Ariel, a symbolic name for Jerusalem, also the name of an Israelite Ariel. So it is a symbolic name of Jerusalem. What does this mean? It means a lioness, a woman lion, or a female lion. Right? What was Sacsayhuaman called, according to Incan oral history of Tupac Inca? Yupanqui. He remembered that his father Pachacuti, or King David, called Cusco the Lion City. The Lion City. Ariel, a lioness. Cusco's lion head is about to show you when it loads. So, and you guys can see that in the Kermeo video that he did on the city of Jerusalem. But anyway, or the city of David. That's all I have. For now, I'll leave all these links in the description so you guys can look into it yourselves. But this stuff is getting very interesting, and hopefully I can bring on Dean soon so he can hopefully smooth out some rough edges that I don't know about, and he can share his intellectual perspective with the nation. Have a blessed day or night. Peace be with you. Selah Kala.